Our first definition will help us distinguish between when two shapes are congruent versus when two numbers are equal. Consider the line segment AB, where M is the midpoint of that line segment. We say that line segment AM is congruent to line segment MB, but we could also say that the distance from A to M is equal to the distance from M to B. This distinction highlights the difference between congruent and equal. Congruent refers to identical shapes, whereas equal will refer to an equivalence of numerical values or variables. Our next definition is the word bisect. To bisect a geometric figure is to cut it into two congruent parts. For example, that line segment we looked at earlier, AB with midpoint M, is a bisected line segment because M splits AB into two congruent parts. The next definition is that of a straight angle. A straight angle is an angle which measures at 180 degrees. Basically, it's just a silly way of saying that every line is in fact a straight angle. If you look at the angle ACB, it measures 180 degrees. On the other hand, a right angle measures 90 degrees, or exactly half of a straight angle. Here is an example of a right angle, two lines meeting at 90 degrees. Parallel lines are lines which never intersect. Oftentimes, the example of railroad tracks are used to describe parallel lines. Here is an example before you of two lines which are, in fact, parallel. Our next definition is that of adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles which share a vertex and a common side. This is an example of two adjacent angles. Note, angles 1 and angles 2 share a vertex and they share a common side. Perpendicular lines, as opposed to parallel lines, are two lines whose intersection forms congruent adjacent angles. Here's a visual example of what perpendicular lines look like. The definition of a circle is a set of all points which are equidistant from a given point called the center. A circle is a relatively familiar shape for most students, and here's an example of a circle and its center. The radius of a circle is any line segment which joins the center to the circle. Here is an example of a radius drawn in blue. Remember that the center is not actually a part of the circle itself. The circle is the black line which goes all the way around. An arc is a part of a circle between 2 points which are on the circle. Therefore, we can pick 2 points on the circle and then shade the part of the circle between them to come up with an arc.